I still remember the exact moment my sister decided to destroy my life. It wasn't whispered behind closed doors or hidden in anonymous messages. She stood in the center of our parents' dining room, surrounded by relatives who had gathered to celebrate our father's retirement, and smiled before saying the words that would echo through every corner of my life. "You should all know the truth," she announced, raising her glass. "Emma isn't even a real lawyer. She's been practicing with a fake degree." The room fell silent. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. My mother's smile disappeared. My father slowly turned toward me, confusion replacing pride. For a heartbeat I couldn't even breathe. "What?" I whispered. "You heard me." Victoria folded her arms with absolute confidence. "I have proof." She had always envied me. Ever since childhood, she'd hated that I earned scholarships while she relied on our parents' endless financial support. When I graduated from law school with honors, she congratulated me in public and mocked me in private. "People like you only get lucky once," she'd once said. Apparently, she'd been planning this moment for much longer than I realized. She placed several printed papers on the dining table. I hired someone to investigate her credentials. My father picked up the documents with trembling hands. "They say your diploma isn't registered." My stomach dropped. I grabbed the papers. They looked official. There were seals, signatures, and even what appeared to be university records claiming my degree number belonged to someone else. It was fake. I knew it instantly because I'd spent years handling forged evidence in court. But no one else knew that. Mom stared at me with tears filling her eyes. "Emma, please tell me this isn't true." "It isn't." Victoria laughed. "Really? Then explain the paperwork." "I don't know where this came from." "Oh, that's convenient." Several relatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. One of my uncles quietly muttered, "This could explain why she's always been so secretive." Secretive? I'd spent years working 80-hour weeks, missed birthdays, skipped vacations, forgot holidays. Yet suddenly my silence was evidence of guilt. My father looked older than he had that morning. "If this is true." "It isn't." "I need the truth." "I am telling you the truth." Victoria dramatically sighed. "Dad, denial is what fraudsters do." I stared at her. Not because I was angry, because I couldn't understand how my own sister could lie so effortlessly. She met my eyes and smiled. Not a nervous smile. A victorious one. That expression told me everything. This wasn't suspicion. It was a plan. Someone had manufactured those records. Someone wanted my career destroyed. And Victoria believed she'd already won. Within 48 hours, the rumors spread through the legal community faster than any official complaint ever could. Clients canceled meetings. 2 corporate contracts were suspended. News blogs picked up anonymous allegations that a prominent attorney had used fraudulent credentials. No names, but enough details that everyone knew it was me. My firm's managing partner called me into his office. He looked exhausted. "I know your work, Emma." "Then you know this is impossible." "I believe you." Relief washed over me. Until he continued. "But belief isn't evidence." He slid a folder across his desk. "The Bar Association has opened an investigation." I closed my eyes. "So I'm suspended. Temporarily." Temporary. Such a harmless word. Yet in law, temporary accusations often left permanent scars. I packed my office that afternoon while coworkers avoided eye contact. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked relieved. Scandal makes people uncomfortable. Distance feels safer than loyalty. Outside the building, reporters were already waiting. "Emma, where did you obtain your degree? Did your university ever verify your graduation? Have you defrauded your clients?" I kept walking, not because I had no answers, because no answer would matter before facts did. That evening my phone rang. It was my mother. "Can you come over?" When I arrived, Victoria was already there. Of course she was. She sat comfortably on the couch as though she belonged in my seat. Mom folded her hands. "Your sister says she found more information." Victoria slid another envelope toward me. "I even discovered someone willing to testify." I didn't touch it. "Who?" "A former university employee." "Name?" "I'll save that for investigators." I leaned back. "You forged these." Her smile widened. "Can you prove it?" Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. His voice shook. I don't care who is lying anymore. I just want the truth. So do I. Victoria looked at him with carefully rehearsed concern. Dad. What if Emma fooled us all? Those words landed exactly where she wanted them. Not in his ears. In his heart. By the time I left that house, my parents weren't convinced I was guilty. But they were no longer certain I was innocent. Sometimes doubt destroys trust more effectively than proof ever could. That night I couldn't sleep. Instead, I unlocked the fireproof safe in my apartment. Inside were documents I'd kept since graduation. Original transcripts. Letters from professors. My diploma. Photographs. Even the handwritten note my constitutional law professor had slipped into my final exam. Justice favors those who respect the truth. I smiled despite everything. Then I noticed something strange. One folder was missing. The certified notarized copies I'd made years ago. I never misplaced legal documents. Never. Someone had accessed this safe. Only 3 people had ever known the code. Me, my late fiancé, and Victoria. Years earlier, during an apartment renovation, I'd asked her to retrieve insurance papers while I was stuck in court. She'd watched me enter the code. Back then I trusted her. Now every memory felt contaminated. The next morning, I hired a digital forensic investigator instead of a criminal lawyer. People assumed lawyers defended themselves best. They were wrong. We become too emotional. I needed someone who could follow facts without carrying my anger. His name was Daniel Brooks. After listening quietly, he asked only one question. Who benefits if your career ends? My sister. No. I frowned. That's the obvious answer. He tapped his notebook. I'm asking who profits. That stopped me. Victoria loved attention. But she also loved money. My suspension meant dozens of high-value corporate clients suddenly needed new representation. One law firm had been aggressively trying to recruit those same clients for months. Its senior partner happened to be Victoria's husband. The room suddenly felt colder. Daniel noticed my expression. You just thought of something. I think this isn't just family jealousy. He nodded slowly. Then we follow the money. Over the next 2 weeks, pieces began falling into place. Anonymous complaints had originated from encrypted accounts. The forged university documents had been printed on commercial equipment unavailable to the public. Someone had paid professionals. This wasn't gossip. It was an operation. Then another surprise arrived. The Bar Association formally referred the matter to the court because one of my ongoing cases involved millions of dollars. A judge would review my credentials before deciding whether every judgment I participated in could be challenged. The hearing date spread across local media within hours. Victoria couldn't hide her excitement. She posted inspirational quotes about honesty, about exposing deception, about how truth always wins. Friends praised her courage. People I'd known for years silently unfollowed me. On the morning of the hearing, I stood outside the courthouse alone. No family. No colleagues. No clients. Only Daniel beside me. You nervous? He asked. I've argued in front of judges my entire career. But never as the accused. I looked at the courthouse doors. No. He raised an eyebrow. I'm angry. He smiled faintly. Good. Angry people notice details. Inside, every seat was occupied. Reporters filled the back rows. Victoria sat confidently beside her husband. When our eyes met, she gave me the smallest, cruelest smile. The kind that said she'd already imagined my downfall. The clerk called the courtroom to order. I rose when instructed. The allegations were read aloud one by one. Each sentence felt like another attempt to erase the life I'd spent years building. Then the judge adjusted his glasses, reached toward a thick sealed archive that had just been delivered under court authorization, and said calmly, "Before we hear any witnesses, this court has requested the defendant's original academic certification filed directly from the issuing institutions and the licensing authorities. I will now open the official record." The courtroom became so quiet that I could hear the rustle of paper as the judge broke the official seal. Victoria shifted confidently in her seat. She wasn't nervous. She leaned toward her husband and whispered something that made him smirk. Whatever story they had built together, They believed it was about to become reality. I kept my eyes on the judge. Years in court had taught me something important. Real evidence never announced itself dramatically. It arrived quietly, carrying more weight than the loudest accusation. The judge removed several folders, each stamped with different official seals. One came directly from my law school, another from the state licensing authority. A third was accompanied by a notarized affidavit from the registrar's office. He adjusted his glasses. The court has received certified records in response to its request. The attorney representing the disciplinary committee nodded respectfully. Victoria looked almost amused. Then the judge read the first page. Emma Carter graduated magna cum laude from Franklin School of Law. Victoria's smile froze. The judge continued. Her degree number exactly matches the university archive. Silence. The signatures on the submitted diploma are verified as authentic. Victoria's husband straightened in his chair. But, Victoria whispered. The judge wasn't finished. The licensing authority further confirms Miss Carter successfully passed the bar examination on her first attempt with one of the highest scores recorded that year. Someone behind me quietly gasped. I didn't move. I simply closed my eyes for 1 second. Not because I had doubted myself. Because hearing the truth spoken aloud after weeks of lies felt almost unreal. Victoria suddenly stood. There has to be some mistake. The judge looked at her. Sit down. But those documents. Sit down. She obeyed. Then came the sentence that changed everything. The documents submitted accusing Miss Carter of practicing law with fraudulent credentials are themselves counterfeit. The words echoed through the courtroom. Counterfeit. Every reporter began writing furiously. The disciplinary attorney slowly turned toward Victoria. Do you know where these documents originated? I only received them. From whom? I don't remember. The judge looked unimpressed. You don't remember the source of evidence you used to accuse someone of felony fraud? I was trying to protect the public. Daniel, sitting beside me, quietly whispered. She's panicking. I could see it now. Victoria's breathing had changed. She crossed and uncrossed her legs repeatedly. She wasn't prepared for this version of events. The judge continued reading. The university also included an unusual attachment. He lifted another document. This affidavit states that approximately 6 weeks ago, someone attempted to obtain unauthorized replacement records using Miss Carter's identity. My pulse quickened. The registrar had noticed. The request had been rejected because the identification presented contained subtle inconsistencies. The judge looked across the courtroom. The university preserved security footage and electronic access logs. Victoria's face lost its color. Her husband slowly looked at her. She refused to meet his eyes. The judge paused. The footage has already been transferred to investigators. A wave of whispers spread through the courtroom. My attorney wasn't even smiling anymore. Neither was Daniel. Because we both knew something. This hearing had stopped being about my innocence. It had become about someone else's guilt. The disciplinary committee immediately requested a recess. Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded everyone. Questions flew in every direction. Miss Carter, would you like to comment? Victoria, did you forge the documents? Counselor Hayes, was your wife involved? Victoria shoved past the cameras without answering. Her husband followed several steps behind. Not beside her. Behind her. That tiny distance spoke louder than any statement. Daniel and I walked toward a quieter hallway. You were right, I said. No. He looked toward the courtroom. We were only looking at the surface. What do you mean? He handed me his tablet. I finally received the financial records. Several wire transfers appeared on the screen. Large payments. 1 consulting company. 3 shell corporations. 1 law firm. I recognized the firm's name instantly. Blackwood and Pierce. The same firm that had tried to steal several of my corporate clients over the past year. 1 payment stood out. It had been authorized by someone named Michael Hayes, Victoria's husband. The amount made my stomach tighten. $280,000. What is this? Daniel zoomed in. The money didn't stop with forged documents. He opened another file. Emails. Contracts. Marketing plans. One message caught my attention immediately. Asterisk, once Emma is suspended, approach her clients within 48 hours. Asterisk. Another. Asterisk, the media campaign begins after the anonymous complaint. Asterisk. Another. Asterisk, Victoria's family connections make the allegations believable. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. This had never been about proving I was a fraud. They had already decided the outcome. Destroy my reputation. Force my clients to leave. Move them to Michael's firm. Profit. Family betrayal had simply been the cheapest weapon. I laughed quietly. Daniel looked surprised. Why are you laughing? They underestimated me. No. He smiled. They underestimated the paper trail. 2 days later, investigators executed search warrants. News helicopters circled downtown. Television stations interrupted programming with breaking updates. The fraud investigation had expanded. Not because of me. Because the forged evidence pointed toward organized corporate misconduct. 3 employees from Blackwood and Pierce were questioned. A document specialist disappeared before officers arrived. Computers were seized. Financial records were frozen. Meanwhile, my suspension was officially lifted. The Bar Association issued a public statement restoring my license immediately. Clients started calling again. Some apologized. Others pretended they had never doubted me. I accepted every apology politely. Trust, however, isn't restored with words. It's rebuilt with time. My parents came to my apartment that evening. Dad looked exhausted. Mom cried before I even opened the door. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. I'm so sorry. I held her without speaking. Dad remained standing near the entrance. I failed you. No. I should have believed you. You were manipulated. I still should have believed you. Those words meant more than any public apology, because they were honest. Then Mom whispered something unexpected. Victoria disappeared. What? She left the house after court. Michael. He isn't answering anyone. Dad slowly sat down. I don't know who your sister has become. Neither did I. The Victoria I grew up with had been competitive, jealous, difficult. But this woman had calmly tried to destroy an innocent person's entire life, including her own sister's. That kind of hatred doesn't appear overnight. It grows quietly for years. 3 mornings later, Daniel called. They found her. Where? She wants to make a deal. A deal. She says she'll tell investigators everything. I looked out my office window at the city I'd nearly lost. What changed? Daniel's voice became unusually serious. Because she just learned someone was recording every meeting she attended. And it wasn't the police. A chill ran through me. If it wasn't the police. Daniel took a slow breath. Then someone even higher in the conspiracy has decided Victoria has become a liability. For the first time since my name had been cleared, I realized the people who had tried to ruin me were far more powerful than my sister. And Victoria herself had just become their next target. The moment Daniel finished speaking, I understood why Victoria wanted to talk. She wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to survive. By that afternoon, investigators confirmed she had requested immunity in exchange for full cooperation. She wouldn't receive complete protection, only consideration if her testimony led to convictions. She had agreed before even speaking to an attorney. Fear changes people faster than guilt ever can. Daniel and I arrived at the federal building, just as she was being escorted into an interview room. She looked nothing like the woman who had smiled across the courtroom. Her designer clothes were wrinkled. Her makeup had been washed away by tears. The confidence that had fueled every lie was gone. When she saw me through the glass, she lowered her eyes. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, I never thought it would go this far. I almost laughed. You accused me of committing a felony. You tried to erase everything I'd built. I know. You stood in our parents' house and watched them question whether I was even their daughter anymore. Her shoulders trembled. I know. No, I said quietly. Now you know. The investigators began recording. Victoria took a deep breath. It started almost a year ago. She explained that Michael's firm had been losing major corporate accounts. Several clients had chosen my firm because of my courtroom record, and Michael had become obsessed with taking them back. One evening he came home with a proposal. He said nobody needed to hurt you physically. We only had to make people doubt you. First she refused. Then he showed her financial projections. If enough of my clients left, he would become a partner with a multimillion-dollar bonus. He promised they would start over in another city, by the waterfront house she always wanted. Travel. Never worry about money again. And what did you get? I asked. She stared at the table. A husband who said I finally mattered. That sentence hurt more than I expected. Not because it excused her. Because it revealed how desperately she had wanted validation. She admitted they hired a document specialist to recreate university records. A private investigator was paid to spread rumors anonymously. Marketing consultants prepared media leaks before the accusations were ever made. Even the relatives who had suddenly begun questioning me had unknowingly repeated carefully planted gossip. Every step had been planned months in advance. But there was one thing Michael never told me, she continued. He wasn't working alone. She described private meetings with investors who wanted my largest clients. A consulting company handled the shell corporations. Someone else financed the operation. Someone who never appeared in emails. Never signed contracts. Only one name was ever spoken. The chairman. Nobody knew his real identity. Every instruction passed through intermediaries. Every payment disappeared through layers of companies. Daniel and I exchanged a glance. The conspiracy had been far larger than we imagined. When the interview ended, Victoria looked at me one last time. I'm sorry. I searched her face. For weeks I had imagined this moment. I thought hearing those words would satisfy me. Instead I felt strangely empty. I'm not the person you should be asking. She frowned. Our parents. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You made them choose between their daughters. She covered her face. I know. As officers escorted her away, I realized revenge had already happened. Not because she had been arrested. Because she finally had to live with the truth about herself. A month later, federal indictments were announced. Michael Hayes was charged with conspiracy, fraud, evidence fabrication, witness tampering, and financial crimes. Blackwood and Pierce dissolved within weeks. Several executives accepted plea agreements. The mysterious consulting company vanished almost overnight. Investigators recovered millions of dollars, linked to fraudulent client acquisition schemes. My career, meanwhile, recovered faster than anyone expected. Clients returned. New ones arrived because they had watched me refuse to compromise under pressure. The same newspapers that questioned my integrity now requested exclusive interviews. I declined most of them. I wasn't interested in becoming famous for surviving someone else's betrayal. Then, one rainy afternoon, my father asked me to meet him at the old lakeside park where he had taught us both to ride bicycles. He looked older than ever. I visited Victoria. I remained silent. She didn't ask about money. He swallowed hard. She asked whether you still hated her. I watched the rain ripple across the lake. I don't hate her. You don't. No. What do you feel? I thought carefully before answering. Nothing. He looked surprised. The sister I loved disappeared long before the courtroom. He nodded slowly. I suppose that's true. A week later I received an unexpected package. Inside was a handwritten letter from Victoria. There were no excuses. No attempts to blame Michael. No requests for forgiveness. Only one sentence stood out. Asterisk. You spent your whole life proving you deserved your name. I spent mine trying to take it away because I never believed I deserved my own. Asterisk. I folded the letter and placed it back inside the envelope. I never replied. Some conversations belong in the past. 6 months later, another courtroom filled with reporters. This time I stood at the counsel table representing dozens of businesses that had been defrauded by the conspiracy. Across the room sat Michael. Gone was the expensive confidence. Gone were the tailored suits and practiced smiles. He looked exhausted. During cross-examination, he denied everything. Until I asked the final question. Mr. Hayes, do you recognize Exhibit 42? He glanced at the screen. It was an internal email. His face remained calm. No. Perhaps this will help. I pressed a button. The courtroom speakers played an audio recording, recovered from the consulting company's encrypted servers. His own voice filled the room. Destroy Emma first. Once she's suspended, the clients won't have anywhere else to go. The silence that followed was absolute. Michael closed his eyes. The jury didn't need another explanation. They had heard his intent in his own words. The verdict came back after less than 3 hours. Guilty on every major count. As people filed out of the courtroom, the same judge who had opened my academic file months earlier paused beside me. "Miss Carter." "Your Honor." He smiled. When I opened that file, I expected to resolve a licensing dispute. So did I. Instead, we uncovered one of the largest fraud conspiracies this court has seen in years. I smiled for the first time that day. Truth has a habit of demanding more paperwork than lies. He laughed softly. "I'll remember that." Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed again. This time the questions were different. What does justice feel like? Do you forgive your sister? I looked at the crowd before answering. Justice isn't watching someone fall. The reporters leaned closer. It's making sure the truth stands where the lie once did. I walked down the courthouse steps into the afternoon sunlight. Months earlier, I had climbed those same steps believing my entire life was about to collapse. Now I was leaving with my name restored, my family beginning to heal, and a career stronger than it had ever been. My sister's accusation had nearly stolen everything from me. Instead, it forced every hidden lie into the open. In the end, the judge didn't save my future by opening my file. He simply opened the truth. And the truth did everything the lies never could. It spoke for itself.